Hi everyone, I hope you're well, thanks for clicking on the video. It's finally here, the first episode of The Last of Us on HBO dropped yesterday. I just got done watching it and holy shit, it is amazing. I'm so glad that they've decided to follow the story in the way that they have. Of course, this is only the first episode, but it's great to see that they haven't deviated too far away from the original storyline. They've kept it as true as possible. Apart from the only difference is that they've given the relationship between Sarah and Joel far more time to breathe. Right, it really gives us the opportunity to engage in their dynamic far more than what the video game ever did. And for that reason, the death of Sarah actually carries far more weight than what it ever did in the video game, which is something I didn't think would be possible. I thought, right, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the first episode, we'll have the death of Sarah and we'll be moving, right? But no, they really dedicated like a solid 20, maybe even 25 minutes of time to really, allow us to see into the relationship between Joel and Sarah, and I'm so glad that they decided to do that, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, when the death of Sarah comes, it carries so much more weight now than it ever did before. Something that took me off guard, I guess I was a little underprepared in some sense, is just how terrifying the infected are in this show. The runners have translated so well over from the video game, I'm not exaggerating at all, they are truly horrifying, and it just gets me so pumped for when we first run into clickers, bloaters, shamblers if they're in the show, right? This scene also, while it's on the screen, was incredible, man, right? We've played the video game, we know how it unfolds, how Joel, Tommy and Sarah crash, but the way they directed the episode, that whole scene felt like I had never even watched it before, right? It felt so fresh. That's actually a great way to summarize the whole episode. It's actually super impressive that they've taken something like The Last of Us, something I'm so familiar with, something I know so well, and they've made it seem so brand new to me and so fresh. It's fantastic. I know this story, I know how it unfolds back to front, but as the episode was progressing, I was biting my fingernails. I'm on the edge of my seat because I don't truly know. I thought I had a clue, but it turns out as the episode unfolds, I have no idea. It was interesting to see Pascal's approach to this scene because it was very different to Troy Baker's in the video game. I'm not sure which I preferred, honestly, because this scene right here is so heartbreaking, but it's heartbreaking in a different way. The silence of Joel in this scene carries almost more weight than the cries of Troy Baker in the video game. It's interesting how that works. Moving on now 20 years later into the time jump, we have this kind of odd scene with this child making his way to the Fedra quarantine zone. You don't quite know what's going on at first, but you see that that's Boston, so you're like, right, okay, they're at the quarantine zone where Joel is. And you think that this child has made it to safety, you're so happy for him. But it turns out you're actually witnessing the euthanasia of the child. And it is truly heartbreaking when you realise they let us know as the viewer just how unforgiving this world is, and Joel just seems a broken man at this point, 20 years on from the death of Sarah, of course. Just a shell of himself, of the man who he once was. Unfortunately though, now that's just how this world is, right? It chews people up and spits them back out again, and you see that a lot throughout the quarantine zone. As you're walking the streets, there are people that are just suffering with no hope. People that have no hands, right? Literally. It's insane the condition that people are living in inside the quarantine zone, and we get a better look at that in the show than we ever did in the video game. This scene was interesting because Tess acts exactly how I would hope she would act in a scenario like this. This is something we didn't get a look at in the video game. You just kind of hear about from Tess what happened. This is kind of wild, actually. She was in a worse predicament than she made out in the video game. I know we're only an episode in, right? But I think it's time to dead all of the negativity around Bella Ramsey as Ellie, right? Her portrayal is fantastic. Granted, right, appearance-wise, she isn't quite as how I would expect Ellie to have looked. But if we're just talking about character, the way she carries herself, her personality, her little quips, right? She's great. And another thing I really enjoyed, something I'm glad they gave us a look into, was the relationship between Tess and Joel. It was always hinted at in the game that perhaps, it was a sexual relationship, or, they never dive into deeply just how loving and caring they were for each other. They hint at it and you can kind of get the point if you look deep enough. But they really painted the picture for us well here. They really made it seem as though, right, these guys are in a committed relationship, it seems. And they do actually love each other, because they never said that to each other in the game, and it wasn't made as clear to us as they just made it to us now in this part of the show. And I like that they've given all of these relationships far more room to breathe, because it just means when their inevitable death comes, it will carry far more weight. Already Tess's death is going to carry significantly more sadness than what it would have otherwise, right? Now, to keep the ball rolling onto this scene, I had a good hard laugh at this moment, right? When they're trying to talk Joel into taking Ellie as cargo, And this chick here is like, I'll take her. And Marlene just looks at her like, you're missing an ear. I really enjoyed that. I got a good kick out of that. And so from there on out, we have our third companion. Ellie's with Joel and Tess, and basically for the remainder of the episode, they're just waiting on nightfall for them to sneak out of the quarantine zone. A scene that I love from the game is when Ellie's like, oh, your watch is broken, Joel, as he's trying to sleep. That carries so much more weight in the show now because of how well they flushed out Sarah and Joel's relationship. It seems as though many of the scenes I love so much from the video game are actually going to carry more weight than ever now because of that. And I think that's going to be something you hear me reflect on a lot. Finally, the last scene I wanted to talk about is this one here, when Joel's parenting instincts kind of kick in and he feels the need to really protect Ellie. These are all moments that now we have a deeper understanding of, far more than what we ever did when we played the game for the first time. And so then we get to see Joel beat the absolute dog shit out of this dude, right? Turns out to be the same guy he was selling drugs to earlier on, and then they move on. But Ellie witnessing that really, put it into perspective of the kind of guy she's dealing with here. For now though guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more Last of Us content. There'll be way more Last of Us videos on the way. I have so many scenes from just the first episode alone that I really want to break down. So like I said, subscribe and keep an eye open for that. If you have any thoughts and opinions on the episode, please leave a comment down below and I'd love to get back to you when I have the time. Thanks guys.